Have you ever been standing at a bus stop or maybe waiting in one of those painfully slow lines at the grocery store?
Oh, the worst.
Right. And you find yourself standing just like inches away from a total stranger, and the air between you two suddenly feels incredibly heavy.
Yeah, you get that suffocating, just completely awkward silence.
Exactly. You're both desperately staring at your phones. Maybe you're just swiping back and forth on your home screen, pretending to read emails you've already read.
Doing literally anything to avoid making eye contact.
Yes, you know exactly the feeling I'm talking about. I mean, it's that universal moment of modern social paralysis.
It is incredibly common, and honestly, it's a bit exhausting.
Yeah.
We all experience that exact scenario, that
Yeah.
palpable tension of simply existing near another human being without actually acknowledging them.
It takes so much effort.
It really does. It takes actual physical and mental energy to pretend someone else isn't there.
Well, today we are pulling from a really fascinating broadcast by an English learning channel. It's titled The Weather Bridge.
It's a great piece of source material.
It really is. And our mission with this deep dive is to completely reframe how you, the listener, view what is arguably like the most cliched topic in human history,
Talking about the weather.
talking about the weather. Because, according to this broadcast, it is not just boring small talk. It
Right.
is actually a sociological secret weapon. So, okay, let's unpack this. Why do we resist it so much?
It's a great question.
If we're all so uncomfortable in that silence, I mean, why do we dread bringing up the rain?
Well, it really comes down to a fundamental psychological barrier,
Mhm.
particularly in our modern society. We live in this highly optimized, productivity-obsessed
Oh,
culture.
for sure. Everything has to be a hustle.
Right. We are constantly told that every interaction needs to have a point or a takeaway or some sort of informational exchange.
Yeah.
Because of that, people avoid talking about the weather.
Because it doesn't do anything for them.
Exactly. They think it's a profound waste of time.
Yeah.
They view it as like empty calories in a
Empty
conversation.
calories, yeah.
But that perspective represents a complete misunderstanding of its actual purpose. I mean, we avoid it because it lacks deep informational value, completely missing the fact that its value is entirely social.
The broadcast actually calls this modern phenomenon the silence trap. You're at that bus stop, the tension is building, and you just feel silly stating the obvious.
Right, because they can see the sky, too.
Exactly. You think to yourself, well, they obviously know it's raining. I don't need to report the news to them, so you say nothing.
And you just say, trapped.
Right. And by choosing that silence, you are actively ignoring what the broadcast beautifully describes as a bridge made of clouds and sunshine.
That metaphor of a bridge is, frankly, the entire key to this. Because if you think about it, a bridge isn't the destination itself.
Nobody hangs out on the bridge.
Right. No one builds a bridge just to stand in the middle of it. It's just the infrastructure required to get from your isolated island to the other person's isolated island.
Which is such a good way to look at it.
There's an anecdote from the broadcast that illustrates this perfectly. One of the hosts was out in their yard. They saw their neighbor over the fence, and instead of just giving the usual polite nod, they simply said, "Wow, the wind is really strong today."
Which is very basic.
Almost embarrassingly simple,
Right.
right? But magically, that simple statement about the wind
Yeah.
led directly into a deep, engaging conversation about the neighbor's garden.
Oh, because the wind was messing with the plants.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
talked about their struggle to keep the plants alive, and eventually it built actual lasting rapport.
Which brings up a great analogy, I think. Talking of the weather is basically the loading screen of a new relationship, or even just like a fleeting conversation.
Oh, I like
Like when you boot up a massive video game, you get that screen with the little spinning icon in the corner. On the surface, nothing is happening. It's totally boring to look at.
You're just waiting.
Right, you're just staring at it. But in the background, the console is rendering the entire environment. It's loading the physics engine. It's preparing the world so you can actually play. When you say, wow, the wind is strong, that is a verbal loading screen.
What's fascinating here is how perfectly that analogy maps to the sociology of human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
While you are casually chatting about the wind, your brain is doing an incredible amount of background rendering.
Yeah. Like what kind of rendering?
Well, you are assessing their vocal tone, for one.
Yeah.
You are checking their microexpressions. You're figuring out, is this person friendly? Are they a threat? Are they in a rush?
So you're just proving to the other person, hey, we exist in the same physical space. I am acknowledging our shared reality, and I am a safe person to talk to.
Precisely. And why does the neighbor interaction work so effortlessly?
Yeah.
Because the weather is a neutral shared reality.
It's right there.
Yeah. To cross that bridge, you don't need to be an expert in politics or art or the local sports team. You just need to possess the ability to label what you see out the window. It removes all the stakes from the initial interaction.
Because it's completely low risk.
It is a completely low-risk offering.
And if they don't want to talk, there's no awkward rejection.
Right. If the neighbor doesn't want to engage, they can just nod, say sure is, and go back to what they were doing.
And it's totally fine.
The interaction ends naturally, and nobody loses face. But if they do want to connect, you've just handed them the keys to open up about how that wind is affecting their prize-winning tomatoes. You've safely navigated the silence trap without putting any pressure on either party.
That is so smart. But if we just stop at breaking the silence, I think we're missing half the picture here, because the broadcast takes this from the outside world directly into our internal world.
Yes, the internal impact.
The words we actually choose to describe the sky are doing heavy lifting for our internal emotions. It's not just a bridge to the person, it's a bridge to how we are feeling.
Yes, and this brings us to the concept of the psychological weather. The material really goes out of its way to highlight the very real biological impact that atmospheric conditions have on our brains and our emotions.
Like it's actual science.
It isn't just poetry, it's chemistry. They discuss the winter blues, which is a legitimate psychological and physiological response. Seasonal affective disorder. It's caused by a lack of light during long gray periods.
Right, because of your hormones.
Exactly. Your melatonin levels spike, your serotonin drops. Our environment dictates our internal chemistry, which in turn completely dictates our mood.
And the contrast in human behavior based on what the sky is doing is, like, it's wild when you actually stop to think about it.
It is.
The hosts mention how sunny days create this sudden, almost manic surge of energy and productivity. You wake up, the sun is streaming in, and suddenly you have the undeniable urge to deep clean your entire apartment, organize your closet, and run 3 errands.
You feel invincible.
Yeah. But then, on rainy days, you get a distinct, completely opposite urge. You don't want to conquer the world at all. You just want to sit on a balcony, wrapped up in a blanket, drinking an iced tea or a coffee, and embrace this cozy feeling.
And this is exactly where the language we choose becomes vital. The broadcast issues a strong warning against the danger of being stuck with basic binary labels.
You mean just saying it's good or bad?
Yes. If your entire meteorological vocabulary is limited to the weather is good or the weather is bad, you are severely restricting your expressive range. And by extension, your ability to connect.
They talk about giving seasons a personality. Like spring isn't just getting warmer, spring is hopeful.
Hopeful, yes.
And autumn isn't just the leaves are falling. Autumn is light jacket weather. And I have to stop on that one because light jacket weather implies a very specific, comfortable, easygoing state of being.
It's highly evocative.
It really is. They also make this vivid contrast with winter precipitation. There's the pure, beautiful white sugar snow that looks magical, and then there's slush.
Ah, slush.
Yeah.
That messy, gray, depressing mix of melting snow, car exhaust, and street dirt.
Okay, wait. I have to challenge this point from the broadcast.
Well, go ahead.
If I'm having a miserable day and it's gray slush outside, why on earth would I want to project that misery onto a stranger at a bus stop? I mean, if the goal is connection, isn't it better to just give a polite, fake, nice weather we're having? Or just stick to bad weather to keep things surface level and pleasant?
So you're worried about bringing them down.
Yeah, aren't we making things worse by using evocative, depressing terms?
That is a very common assumption, but I would argue the exact opposite. And the sociological principles support this. This raises an important question about the limits of language and authenticity.
How so?
Well, the words we use construct our reality. Using the nuanced vocabulary from the source material isn't just about sounding smart. It is fundamentally about accurately translating your internal state to the outside world, which is the prerequisite for genuine empathy.
Wait, how does calling it slush create empathy?
Because of sensory memory. If you just say the weather is bad, that is an abstraction. A listener's brain doesn't really react to abstractions.
Right, it's just a generic word.
But if you look out at a freezing, muddy street and say, it is absolute gray slush out there today, you are triggering a specific shared sensory experience in the listener's brain.
Oh, yeah.
They remember the physical sensation of cold, wet ankles. They remember the exhaustion of trudging through it. By giving them a vivid image, you are subtly communicating your internal emotional state, your own exhaustion or frustration.
So it's not really about the snow at all.
No, You are telling them, I am internally experiencing a messy, confusing, exhausting day.
Wait, really? So when I use a vivid word to complain about the rain, I'm actually giving a stranger a real-time emotional status update. I'm projecting my internal weather onto the external weather and sharing that.
Exactly. You are giving them a translation of your inner world, wrapped in a socially acceptable package. It's a form of vulnerability that doesn't feel dangerous.
Because you're just talking about the sky.
Right. If you say, I love this cozy rainy day, you are telling a stranger you feel safe, reflective, and calm. If you just say, the rain is bad, you've completely stripped the interaction of its emotional resonance. The more granular and descriptive your labels for the weather, the more accurately you can connect your internal feelings with another human being.
We think we're just talking about precipitation, but we're actually conducting this subtle emotional telemetry. It's almost sneaky.
It is a bit sneaky, yes.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The broadcast transitions from these everyday emotional states, like the cozy rains and the productive sunshine, to extreme weather. It explores how shared adversity shapes our language and how it actually creates our best memories.
Shared adversity is a powerful sociological glue. To illustrate this, the source uses a perfect, highly relatable example, which is the phenomenon of small disasters.
Yes, the umbrella turning inside out in a massive windstorm.
Exactly. Objectively, that is an embarrassing, frustrating moment. You are fighting this ridiculous inverted piece of metal and fabric on a crowded sidewalk.
You're getting completely soaked.
You're probably trying to hold on to a bag of groceries at the same time. But as the broadcast points out, those small disasters make life and our conversations significantly more interesting.
Because nobody gathers around the water cooler at work to tell a story about the time they walked down the street on a 72-degree day with a light breeze and absolutely nothing happened.
No, of course not.
There is no story there. You tell the story about the time the wind inverted your umbrella and you had to wrestle it like a wild animal while the bus splashed a puddle on you.
Right.
And this deep connection between weather, shared adversity, and the human experience is literally baked right into our language. The broadcast brings up the origin of the idiom, under the weather.
The etymology of that phrase is a fantastic example of this concept in action.
It comes from old sailors. When they were out at sea and a terrible storm hit, the ship would be tossing violently. And the sailors who were feeling seasick or who were just generally unwell would literally go down below the deck of the ship.
To escape the storm.
Yeah, they were going under the deck to get away from the rocking, the wind, and the elements so they could recover. They were literally under the weather.
It's brilliant.
It's incredible that hundreds of years later, when I have a mild head cold in my perfectly safe, stationary suburban house, I use a phrase born from sailors surviving a literal squall. It just shows how weather is this ultimate, universal adversary that forces people into shared experiences.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains a profound quirk of human psychology. We bond over surviving the storm, not basking in the sun. The source shares this wonderful anecdote about a car picnic.
Oh, I loved this part.
Yeah, a group of friends had planned a lovely afternoon outdoors, but their plans were completely derailed by a sudden, violent thunderstorm. They were forced to grab their food, sprint to a small, crowded car, and eat their soggy sandwiches while the storm raged.
With the thunder cracking right outside the foggy windows.
Exactly. By all traditional metrics of event planning, their day was entirely ruined.
But the people in the story said they laughed harder than they had in months. It was so silly, so cramped, and it ended up creating this hilarious, unforgettable memory.
And why do ruined plans often make the best stories? Because shared adversity, even a minor low-stakes one like a ruined picnic or a broken umbrella, it lowers our social defenses.
Because you're all in it together.
Yes. It triggers an old evolutionary pack survival instinct. It builds community and camaraderie much faster than a perfectly sunny, frictionless day ever could. When the storm hits, the artificial boundaries between us dissolve. The pretense drops.
We stop trying to act cool.
Exactly. We are no longer strangers at a bus stop or acquaintances trying to impress each other at a picnic. We are fellow humans surviving the elements together. The weather forces us to cooperate, to commiserate, and, most importantly, to laugh at our shared lack of control over the universe.
It's like the weather forces us off our individual isolated islands and makes us huddle on that bridge together. And the broadcast actually encourages this active reframing of scary things.
The thunderstorm reframing.
Right. They suggest viewing a massive thunderstorm with all the booming thunder and flashing lightning, not as a terrifying threat that ruins your day, but simply as a free light show from the sky.
That is a deliberate cognitive shift. You are taking a chaotic, uncontrollable force of nature and reframing it as a shared aesthetic experience. You're choosing awe over annoyance.
I love that. Choosing awe over annoyance. And on the flip side of that chaos, we also use weather to describe absolute ease and success. The material notes that when a conversation flows perfectly or, a task at work is completely effortless, what do we say? We say it was a breeze.
A breeze, yes.
So we have this entire spectrum of the human experience, from the scary boat-rocking storms to the effortless, breezy successes, all mapped onto atmospheric condition.
Which brings us directly back to the core premise of the broadcast. Weather is absolutely not small talk. It is the fundamental framework we use to make sense of the world, to process our own emotions, and to figure out our place in society alongside other people.
So what does this all mean for you, listening to this deep dive right now? How do you take this from an interesting sociological theory into your actual life?
It's all about practice.
Right. The takeaways from the weather bridge are incredibly practical. First, use the bridge. Stop avoiding the small talk. Recognize that acknowledging the shared reality of the sky is the necessary verbal loading screen for human connection.
Stop worrying that it isn't deep enough.
Exactly. Just let the background rendering happen.
Yeah.
Second, label your world vividly. Don't settle for lazy words like good or bad. Find the white sugar snow, identify the hopeful spring, and use those highly specific, nuanced labels to translate your internal emotional state to the people around you.
Share your inner weather.
Yeah. And third, find the cozy moments in the small disasters. Ruined plans, muddy slush, and inside-out umbrellas are just the universe giving you the raw material for your next great story. Because as the hosts of the broadcast put it so beautifully, rain teaches us patience, and the sun teaches us gratitude.
I would encourage you, the listener, to do a small exercise right now. Wherever you happen to be listening to this, take a brief moment to observe the sky out your window, or just feel the air temperature around you.
See what it's doing.
Right. What is the weather doing? And more importantly, how is it reflecting or altering your internal state right at this second? Are you feeling energetic and productive in the sunlight? Or are you feeling cozy and reflective in an overcast room? Make the connection.
Connects the inside and the outside.
Exactly. And the next time you are forced into that awkward silence in a waiting line or a bus stop, I challenge you to use a specific, vivid vocabulary word to bridge the gap with the person next to you.
It's such a simple challenge, but a genuinely powerful one. Just break the silence. Just offer the bridge.
It is powerful. But before we wrap up, I do want to leave you with a final, perhaps slightly more provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, lay it on us.
We have established today that the weather has historically been our universal bridge for human connection. It is the foundation of so much of our language, our idioms, and our shared evolutionary bonding.
The great equalizer.
Exactly. But as modern society progresses, we are spending more and more of our lives inside highly engineered, climate-controlled environments.
That's true.
We move from our air-conditioned homes directly into our air-conditioned cars and take the elevator up to our air-conditioned offices. We are becoming increasingly isolated from the sky.
We never even feel the wind.
Right. So if the weather is the great equalizer, the one thing that reminds us we are all in this together. What happens to our ability to relate to strangers as we slowly engineer the weather out of our daily lives?
Wow.
Will we eventually lose our most fundamental universal icebreaker entirely?
Oh, wow. That is a chilling thought. Or, well, depending on your thermostat, a perfectly room temperature climate-controlled thought.
Fair point.
But it's incredibly poignant. If we lose the shared struggle against the rain, we might just lose the bridge entirely and end up permanently stuck on our own islands. Something to really think about the next time you are standing at that bus stop, trapped in the silence, staring at the glowing rectangle in your hand. Put the screen down, look up at the clouds, look at the person next to you, and just say, wow, the wind is really strong today. You never know what kind of connection is waiting to load.